Greetings, pipeliners. I hope that everything is well out there. Now that you've had your first experiences using IRAC, the IRAC method of legal analysis, we wanted to discuss a theme that will reoccur not only during Pipeline Part 2, but throughout of law school and your legal careers. And that theme is the critical importance of precision in writing. In legal writing, lawyers must use laser-like precision when drafting documents. Whether those documents are contracts, pieces of legislation, or motions they are submitting to court. Successful lawyers must be mindful when they're writing, carefully selecting words to make the strongest argument possible. So the first question I pose is, why is it so important to use laser-like precision in your writing? That's a very good question. And while the question can be answered in a variety of ways, I will reduce my answer to 2 points. The first reason is that courts and law school professors often include page limitations. If an attorney fails to abide by these limitations, the attorney runs the risk that the court will not accept their motion papers and put the entire case at risk. The second is that your job, and oftentimes the job of your opponent, will be to interpret everything that is submitted to the court or to the legislator in your favor or in their favor. The more careless you are with your writing, the more ambiguous your writing can be, and potentially more dangerous your writing will be, for your opponents will have opportunities to undercut your argument. Huge legal arguments have been won and lost upon the placement of commas. Although the process will be slow at first, the style of writing will eventually become second nature, and you will find yourself constructing legal briefs, memos, demand letters with ease. So, how can we ensure that your writing is as carefully crafted as possible? Well, the first rule is to keep it simple. Keep it simple, students, and eliminate what we call compound constructions. Here are some examples of those compound constructions, despite the fact that can become although, with regard to can become about, and in the event that can become if. So these are constructions that people often use to try to make their writing sound more sophisticated, when the reality is it just makes it a little more complicated than it needs to be, less concise than it needs to be, and eats up lots of pages, lots of real estate in your briefs. So if you can eliminate these, you can get a whole lot of more space to write really persuasive arguments. So, for example, he went to the store for the purpose of buying milk. 11 words, 41 letters. He went to the store to buy milk. 8 words, 25 letters. So see how we just eliminated for the purpose of buying milk, and we replaced it with to buy milk. And we were able to save 3 whole words and 16 letters right there. So a whole lot of space in our briefs. Because of the fact that it's snowing, we won't have class tonight. Turns into because it is snowing, we won't have class tonight. Again, we saved a whole bunch of real estate on our briefs by simply just eliminating of the fact that and replacing it with because it is snowing. In the absence of any additional evidence, we cannot prosecute this case. We took out in the absence of, and we replaced it with without. And again, we made the same point a lot more concise and I think a lot more clear. Be precise, rule number 2. Be very mindful of your word placement. Legal writing is like playing chess with your words. You want to be very selective and very precise about where you put your words. So, for example, my client has discussed your proposal to fill in the drainage ditch with his partners. So the sentence is up to debate. It's up to it's a little confusing. Did he discuss the proposal with his clients, or is he actually going to fill the ditch with his clients? Now, common sense says, well, obviously, he's not going to fill the ditch with people. But it would probably be better if you just phrased it in a little more clear way. My client has discussed with his partners your proposal to fill the drainage ditch. Another example. Ryan claimed to have eaten 1,000 tacos last night. Well, did Ryan make the statement last night, or did he actually eat 1,000 tacos last night? Again, common sense said that Ryan probably didn't eat 1,000 tacos. But if we have the option, why not just make it clear? Ryan claimed last night that he has eaten 1,000 tacos. Last night, Ryan claimed to have eaten 1,000 tacos. Another example, filled with bad gas, he drove his car to Tucson despite the knocking sound. Uh, Again, a little confusing. Was the person filled with bad gas or was the car? We cleared up in the second sentence. Although it was filled with bad gas, he drove his car to Tucson despite the knocking sound. Be precise rule number 3. Avoid certain words unless properly trained. So synonyms. As you will learn in your law school career, an element is not a factor. An element in a rule is different than a factor in a rule. Although element and factor seem to be synonymous, seem to mean the same exact thing, they're actually very different in the practice of law. Avoid foreign languages, Latin, words of authority, shall, or any words that you do not know the meaning of. Again, folks often try to use certain words to make the writing sound more sophisticated, when the reality is, more often than not, it will lead to mistakes in your writing, which will lead to confusion and oftentimes mistakes. Example, it was literally raining cats and dogs. Well, I hope it wasn't literally raining cats and dogs. If it was, that's a very interesting situation. It was probably figuratively raining cats and dogs, but again, that's a phrase. My head literally exploded. If your head literally exploded, you should probably go to the hospital. Avoid empty words, clearly or obviously. Well, if it's so clear or so obvious, why are you in court? Obviously, it's not as obvious as you think it is. So therefore, don't use words like clearly or obviously. And avoid hyperbole or exaggeration. I call this rounding up and rounding down. The example I put in there, the arguments put forth by the defense are an embarrassment to the legal profession, to this most honorable court, and frankly, to the human race. Are they really that bad? Because really, you're going to make a bad impression upon the judge and to the court. You're not going to win any arguments that way. Be honest and be persuasive, but don't exaggerate. You don't need to exaggerate if your case is good enough. A powerful agent is the right word. Whenever we come upon one of those intensely right words in a book or a newspaper, the resulting effect is physical as well as spiritual and electrically prompt. So says Mark Twain, a fairly good writer in his own right. So in class, we're going to be talking more about this. We'll have more examples. And we'll have some activities that we can all use to learn more about this together. But really, again, the important thing here is to think about your writing, be mindful about your writing, and don't just write for writing's sake. You're gonna find that page limitations become really tough, and you're trying to find ways to reduce the amount of pages that you're taking up. So this is one way to do it, being as precise as possible. So thanks again for listening and taking part in this flipped classroom webinar PowerPoint presentation, and bring any questions that you have to class, and we will be going over some of these exercises in class to make more clarification. Thanks very much, and I'll see you all soon.